Hey guys, so we're doing another video on the 2017 Street Glide build. This time we are putting 16-inch bars on. Now, if you haven't seen the other videos, we did a teardown video on this bike. He's going to have it painted, so we went through all that, and now we're working on putting it back together. We've already done the front forks and stuff because they've been painted, but we're going to stop and do 16-inch KST bars on this bike. So he's got 12 inches on here now. I'll kind of show you where we're at on the bike. We already had the fairing off for paint, so that's not something you necessarily have to do, but what you do have to do is take the turn signals off and the studs that are there and get to the frame of this fairing mount, and that is so you can rotate this thing back, because if you get up here and look, you can't really get to the bar clamps up here underneath the radio. So you can take that loose and then just kind of rotate that back. We'll show you that. Then we're going to start taking off the controls and the master cylinders and all that stuff so we can fit the new 16-inch pre-wired bars up there. Nick has stripped off the hand controls here. So on the brake side here, this is your throttle by wire. And then these little plugs go into the hand controls. It's pretty easy to separate that and unplug those. Just reach in there with a little pick, push that down, pull them out. That side over there is a little tougher. Now one thing that really a lot of people don't catch on this, that's where on the back side of this, you have basically like your trip button where you cycle through your trip and stuff for mileage. All right, guys, getting this hand control off, one of the tricks is this button right here, which is like a trip odometer, cycle through for your trip meters and stuff. And to get this off, you pull up on this and it comes up. And then you slide this off that way. Now, I didn't put it all the way on where it snaps back on, but that's really what you do is you pull up on it, you'll hear it pop, and then you push out and it slides off that way. Now, we had to push really hard. We thought we were going to break it, but it does come off, so don't be scared. Just make sure you have it pulled up first and you push straight out. We took the top clamp off and unplugged these pins here. Now, these bars were put on the stock cables, and so these were really tight, but they did work. And just so you know how these work, you have basically, these are like what we would call the female receptacle. There is a male part that goes into that. You squeeze back here, and I can't really do it while I'm holding the camera, but then up here on this end, you use your other hand and you press down with your fingernail, and that releases that so that the male end will slide out. Now we're going to go ahead and get these hydraulic lines disconnected next. And then we'll start running the new lines, make sure our links and stuff and everything looks good before we start reassembly. All right, the next thing we did was go ahead and get the brake master cylinder off of the back line that feeds to the ABS module. So we used a coffee can and basically, we dabbed a lot of the brake fluid out with a rag, and then we flipped it over, drained it into a coffee can with the top off. Took the line off. It's, just a regular bolt, no big deal. I did put a little bolt and nut through the banjo connector on the end just so it's not leaking fluid as we're dragging the line back through the bike. So the line essentially goes right through here, right in front of this clamp for the bar. Goes straight down. And it's a little hard to see, but right in there's this block that these hoses were in. And you pry it out, and then the hose comes out, the brake line from the back side of that block. It runs right down the channel here. Another little plug right there. Zip tie up here. Zip tie back here. Runs right down here, and here's the ABS module. And it connects to this terminal right here. So we're about to take that off and put the new line in. All right, we're working on the clutch line now. And it essentially routes underneath the fairing the same place that the brake line does. But it comes down a down tube on the right side of the motorcycle. When I say right side, air cleaner side, right side when you're sitting on it. Runs down and comes back underneath the cam cover. And there's a couple zip ties and clips in there. You'll see them. Just take that stuff loose and it runs right back to this transmission cover. We went ahead and took the heat shield off because he's going to paint them anyway. He's got it like right there. You see a spot where something got burnt to it. Now, there might be a better way, but we couldn't find one to get that transmission cover off. So we loosened the exhaust up, took the heat shields off, took the floorboard off. Make sure you loosen up the mount right there directly underneath the transmission cover to get the most flex. And then you can kind of flex the pipe out and get that transmission cover off. Now we're going to go ahead and break this clutch line off and, well, not break it off, but break it loose and pull it out and start feeding the new one in. I want to give a big shout out to today's video sponsor. That is Schmidt Law Firm. I thank them for sponsoring today's video. Ben Schmidt is an attorney that also rides and races motorcycles. He's not just a personal injury attorney, and that's who I would call if I got in an accident, and that's who I recommend you call if you're in Missouri, Kansas, or Arkansas, and you need a personal injury attorney. And I want to thank them again for sponsoring motorcycle events in Missouri and for sponsoring today's video. We have gotten the clutch line routed up through here. Comes right underneath your cam cover there. There's a little clip there, a couple places for zip ties in here. Clips up the down tube, comes in here, goes into this block, goes right up through the fairing and back out just like the brake line does. Follows that same path, comes out through here. Right now we kind of have it over out of the way because we've been working on getting the bars clamped in here. These are pre-wired from KST. These are the 16-inch Mayhems. One of the things we did is we went ahead and put polyurethane bushings in here. So on the Street Glide, there's a bolt. You can see it right there. You loosen that up, that'll come out. Basically, the bottom of your handlebar clamp is the nut. And there's a bushing in here. And from the factory, they're kind of a rubber bushing that tends to wear out faster. So everybody recommends upgrading them with polyurethane. So while we're doing the bars, we went ahead and did that. Now, Nick had a problem in the past with the bars slipping on him. So he'd bought this little special clamp, top clamp here on Amazon. And it's got little spikes in here that you can tighten down to help grip the bar to keep it from slipping. And when you got really tall bars, that kind of comes in handy because they tend to have, like if you hit a big bump, to maybe rock back easier and stuff. So with taller bars like these 16 inches, the polyurethane help with the vibration. They work better at keeping the bar, I guess, stable, you would say. Also, if you hit a big bump and pull on the bars real hard, the taller they are, the more leverage you have, the more likely they are to slip. So a clamp like this with these pins in here that can help tighten that up will help prevent that as well. Next thing you want to do is go ahead and kind of get your hand controls up here. I'm going to show you what the back of this looks like. All right, guys, so the internal wiring from the handlebar comes out, plugs into the hand controls here. We did not put the back side on yet. We just wanted to test to make sure everything was working good. We didn't have any problems with any of the wiring or anything. This is your brake switch. Now, this is kind of, I guess, what you would call a reverse switch. When it is out, the brake is actually on. You have to push it in for it to go back to the run lights. If we put the other side together enough just so we could test everything and make sure everything worked. We put the ignition switch back in so we can turn the bike on. As you can see, it turns on. We already tested the wiring to the tail lights and things like that. We're going to be changing out his tail lights, but we tested to make sure everything was good there because we don't have the front turn signals on. I would highly recommend you test the wiring, the horn, those kinds of things before you put it all together, just to make sure, especially if you get pre-wired bars. Chances are they're going to be perfect, but you never know, and you don't want to put it all together to find out. You have to take it back apart to troubleshoot a connector somewhere. All right, guys, if you don't know, all these connectors are kind of unique. The two hand control connectors are the same kind of connector and the same wiring. You just have to pay attention to which is left and which is right. But other than that, the other wiring, like for the brake switch and things like that, are unique, and you cannot plug them into the wrong thing. All right, guys, it's really important to sit on the bike and kind of get the bars adjusted where you want them. Typically, you may be bringing them back as close to you as you feel comfortable with, but you got to turn them both ways. Make sure you're not going to hit the tank or anything else. We can't put the fairing in place and tighten the bars down all the way yet, so we kind of really got them as far back as he was comfortable with. Then we adjusted the levers, rotating them on the bar to where he wanted them, then tighten everything down. Make sure you get that kind of all in place and get it as close as possible before you throw the fairing up. If the fairing's in the way, then we'll have to adjust them a little bit. Hopefully it's not, and we're good to go. Now we're going to work on, I say bleeding the brakes, but it's kind of a reverse bleed. We're going to pump fluid from the bottom of the brake system up through the ABS module and back into the reservoir. So we're going to leave the cap off. We're going to try that process next. I've never done it this way, but I think it'll work a lot better. And from what I understand, if you can do it this way, then you don't have to do the ABS bleed. All right, well, that's the first time I have done a hydraulic clutch or a brake like that, and that actually worked really well using a syringe to push fluid through the bleeder valve and up through the system and out the top. Didn't take very long. Didn't seem like we had any air in the lines. We checked it when we were done using the levers a little bit and stuff. Doing it through the front brake caliper worked really well. I think if I flush the brakes on a bike, I'm gonna do it that way going forward. Do one side, do the main line, and then just do the other tee off of the other brake and stuff. And yeah, I like that method. We went ahead and sealed up the top of the bars and stuff. And really, I mean, at this point, the bars are pretty well installed and ready to go. We've got to put the fairing and everything back. That's probably going to be in that other video that we're doing on the assembly of the bike and stuff. So if you want to know more about taking the fairing off or putting the fairing on or anything else, make sure you check out that other video on this build. As always, y'all stay safe, keep on riding, and we'll see you in the next one. Before we finish this video up, I just want to talk for a minute about why we did pre-wired bars. I've done bars similar to this, especially with these little hooks at the top in the past, and they are difficult for me. There are surely some people out there that are better at it than me, but I've been told by mechanics that wiring bars are a pain in the ass. After doing a set, I highly agree with them. And I would highly recommend that if you can afford it, get your bars pre-wired. KST offers a lot of different options for pre-wired bars. I wish we had done that when we put my wife's bars on. I told my buddy it was well worth the money to do them this time. All those connectors and the throttle by wire sensor and all that stuff comes in there. So I think they're like 200 bucks, but I mean, they're not making that much money off doing the pre-wired option because there's probably, close to $100 worth of materials at least in this. I definitely think it's worth doing pre-wired bars. That's a big tip for you guys if you can afford it. Also, another thing that a lot of people ask me about is how to know what size length. So what we did was run a piece of paracord down the existing cable and then held that spot or marked that spot, then laid it on a table and measured it with a tape measure and got our lengths. Now, what I would tell you and what KST recommended was 6 over for these 16-inch bars. So that means like the stock cables are good to 10 inches. And I know you can make them work with 12s if you do a little rerouting and stuff. I've seen people do that. I'm not saying that's bad. But if you have a stock street glide and you're looking to go to 16s, I would do 6 overs. 18s, 8 overs. Doing 14s, 4 over, okay? You get the idea. And if you use the paracord method, you can get that measurement. You can look at the vendor's website like Magnum Shields or whoever and see what stock length is, and then their 2+, 4+, 6+ lengths are, and make sure they match what you kind of measured with the paracord or the string. Also, somebody's going to ask, so there will be a link in the description to these exact bars on KST's website. I don't make any money from that. And links to the little clamp on Amazon and the syringe kit we use. And those will be affiliate links. Using those will help support the channel. So, we use KST bars. I reached out to them because I really like their bars. We've been really happy with them. I've done a couple of installs with KST bars now. And they have great options and great pricing. So shout out to KST as well. Now y'all stay safe, keep on riding, and we'll see you in the next one.